Story recapped here. Today, I'm going to explain a horror and mystery movie called The Odds. Spoilers ahead, watch out, and take care. A bag is pulled from a woman's head, revealing that she's in a room with a man. This man is her game master, who sets up the place before the game starts. The player questions if the bag over her head was necessary, so the game master explains that their location needs to be kept a secret. Given the legal technicalities of the game, the player asks for his name, but the game master insists that they shouldn't share their names. He reminds her that the game involves 20 players and 5 preliminary rounds before the finals. If a player surrenders during the preliminary round, they will receive nothing. However, if they make it to the finals, they're committed to the game and are not allowed to leave. The player assures him that she won't quit. She comments that it's weird for people to bet on something like this, so the game master notes that gamblers will make odds on anything. The player asks if it's true that the prize money is $1 million, and he confirms it. Just then, the man brings out a candle. The player is confused as she thought there'd be a gun involved, so the game master says it's not yet time for that. The player asks if she's met him before, but the question is left unanswered when another man enters. He informs the game master that the woman's tests came negative, confirming that she's not under any performance-enhancing medication. Minutes before the game master informs her that the sponsors can see them through the cameras but can't hear them, so he encourages her to spill her secrets. The player, however, claims that she doesn't have any because all her mistakes are out in the open. After this, the game master lights the candle and explains that the first round will have the players put their hands over the flame until 3 players surrender. This makes the woman nervous, so he tells her that she can still back out. However, the player claims that she has nowhere to go. She asks the game master if he has children, so he shares that he has a son. With her voice breaking, she asks how he'd feel if his child was taken from him while knowing that it was the right thing to happen. She hints that the only thing to do at this point is to win money so that her daughter can live the life she deserves. The game master notes that he wouldn't risk his life for money, but the player believes that's all her life is good for at this point. Hearing this, the game master tells her that they're in this together. She asks if he'd ever played, but he avoids the questions. Finally, the game begins. The player shakes in pain as she holds her hand out over the candle. The flame burns her palm, but she keeps it there while holding back tears until the game master confirms from his earpiece that 3 other players surrendered. With this, the first round is done, and the game master congratulates her. He tends to her injury and confesses that he's never played the game, but he has hosted it 14 times already. The woman asks how many players he hosted have won, and the game master replies that there were none. Most of the players quit before the finals, while some people even blow their brains out. The player asks about the others, but the game master says knowing their identities won't boost her chances. After all, her endurance is all that she has to beat. He claims to hate the things he sees, so the player questions why he keeps doing it. The game master points out that everyone does something that isn't good for them. Before they start the second round, the game master tells her that the good thing about the game is that it changes her. The player asks again if they haven't met before, but he doesn't answer. Moments later, another man places a wooden box on the floor, and the game master explains that for the second round, she needs to place her bare foot right inside the box. The first 3 players to surrender will be eliminated. Fearing what's inside, the player attempts to back out, so the game master reminds her about her daughter. He then asks if she's afraid of rats, hinting that it's what's inside. Just then, he's notified that 1 player just backed out, giving the woman more reason to continue. The woman puts her foot in the box and holds the game master's hand for support. Then, with the signal of the organizers, the game master removes the separation barrier. She feels a rat on her foot, making her jump. Not seeing what's happening, the player begins to panic until the rat starts biting, causing her to scream in pain. She wants to surrender, but the game master tells her to hold on because 1 player just surrendered. The game master helps her focus until the last player gives up. The woman takes her bloody foot out of the box and hugs the game master. The game master tends to her wounds and kisses her feet, which surprises her. He then receives a notification to stand by, so he hands her a bottle of water while they wait. The player asks again where she knows him from, but he diverts the topic to what the player plans in case she wins. He hints that she can do something for herself or take her daughter and her partner somewhere lovely. The player scoffs at this since she's no longer with her daughter's father. The game master then suggests going out with a nice guy, but she questions why everyone thinks a woman's problems can be fixed with a man. He thinks she just hasn't met the right man, so the player thinks he's suggesting himself. Teasingly, the game master asks what if he proposed to her after she gets out of the game. He insists that deep down, she still believes in love. The third round begins, and it involves the same box. This time, however, screws will be drilled into her left foot until 3 players tap out. The game begins, and the game master drills into her foot, causing immense pain. This goes on for minutes, spilling her blood from the side of the box. She jumps in pain but gathers back her courage and continues until she passes out. Between the windows of her consciousness, she hears that the game is over, and the game master removes the screws from her foot. When the player wakes up, the game master has already bandaged her foot. He asks her about his proposal, and the woman accepts, so he kisses her. At the same time, he secretly places a painkiller in her hand. Later, they discuss their future as a married couple, which ends when the woman jokingly asks if he'll live off her money, offending him. After this awkward situation, they talk about the organizers. The woman claims that they must be weirdos, but the game master argues that they're researchers of human behavior. He adds that she should be grateful for him and the people who created the game. If she hadn't heard about it, she would have been in the streets while her daughter ended up with awful guardians. Suddenly, the game master laughs and says that he's just kidding. The fourth round begins and the player faces a tank filled with water. The game master explains that he'll hold her head underwater, and if she wants to surrender, she must drop the bullet he gives her. He asks if she trusts him, but the woman hesitates. The game master teasingly assures her that he won't keep her head underwater after 3 players are eliminated, making her suspicious. Because of this, she says what he wants to hear, even saying that she loves him. Before they begin, 2 players have already tapped out, forcing them to start the game. The player takes a deep breath just before the game master forces her head into the water. Moments later, she loses consciousness and dreams about being with her daughter. While watching her daughter by the lake, the player hears the game master saying, "I love you," making her turn. When she looks back, her daughter is already gone, seemingly into the water. This triggers her to wake up. She feels the game master exploring her body while her head is underwater. Unable to do anything, she attempts to drop the bullet to surrender, but the bullet only exists in her hallucination. Not long after, she loses consciousness again, and the game master pulls her out of the tank. As she cups out water, he laughs because he thought she was dead. He asks why she didn't release the bullet, so the player admits that she swallowed it to ensure that she didn't drop it. As she dries herself up, the game master comments that she could have been attractive with a little more effort. When she deflects, he tells her that it's customary to thank him for the compliment. Despite not liking him, she thanks him. Suddenly, the game master asks how many men she slept with, asserting that her future husband should know. Offended, she ends up saying that she lost count. This angers him, so he sits closer to her and starts touching her until she slaps his hand away. He slaps her back, then blames her for making him do it. When she tells him that he's not supposed to do whatever he wants, the game master thinks that's absurd because she wanted him to do it. He insists that she can freely leave if she wants to, but she asserts that she's staying for her daughter. He yells at her, insisting that she's still there because they belong together. He then forcefully kisses her until his coworker enters, placing a bag on the table. After he leaves, the game master tells her she might want to consider taking their relationship further, as it might be her last chance to make love with a complete body. The game master opens the bag and presents her with a jar and knife for the 5th round, where she'll cut her own fingers. Before the game begins, he offers some painkillers, but the player returns the one he gave earlier, proving that she can handle it. The game begins, and the woman places the blade on her finger. Moments later, the player hugs her mutilated hand while her 3 severed fingers are in the jar. The game master is entertained that she made it this far, but the game isn't over yet. The player forces herself to place the blade on her hand again, but can't go through with it. In tears, she pushes herself to stand and makes her way to the door. The game master warns her that if she quits now, everything she sacrificed will be wasted. Still, the player knocks on the door to have the others open it when, suddenly, the game master announces that 3 players just surrendered, thus ending the round. Still, the player wants to go out and use the bathroom. Alone in the bathroom, she finally breaks down, traumatized by what she went through. She pulls out a pendant from her pocket to remind herself why she entered this game. Determined to fight for her daughter, the player musters up her courage and returns to the room. There, she finds the game master adoring her severed fingers, asking if he could keep them as a souvenir. Ignoring him, the player spots the gun on the table, and the game master tells her that the final round will be a game of Russian roulette against the 4 other remaining players. Staring at him, the player insists that she knows him from before. She notes that she's known him her whole life, comparing him to all the men who made her life miserable. The game master responds that she reminds him of all the women who take advantage of their looks to get ahead. The player mocks him, saying that he found the perfect job to indulge his sadistic fantasies. This makes him slap her twice, accusing her of wanting him to do so because she knows she deserves it. This time, however, the player laughs that after everything she went through in the game, he still thinks he can hurt her. To prove her point, the player slaps herself repeatedly. Enraged, the game master grabs the gun and pulls the trigger on her head, but the gun is empty. Still, she tells him that he doesn't scare her. Moving forward with the game master insists that she take her seat. Before that, the player asks what will happen if she decides to leave, so the game master says that he will shoot her dead if she does. The final round begins, so the game master explains that all 5 players will pull the trigger simultaneously upon their signal. They must continue doing so until 4 players are eliminated. Upon being given the signal, the woman holds her breath and pulls the trigger. Luckily, she makes it through the first round and another player dies, leaving 4 more players. The game master removes the bullet from the barrel to change its position after each round. While waiting, the game master comments how he'd love to see her break before she dies. He mocks the idea that her pain will gain her some cosmic karma to get what she deserves. He insists that pain is merely pain and it isn't rewarded. As he replaces the bullet in the barrel, he tells her that when she dies, no one will know. However, she replies that she'll be dead anyway, so it doesn't matter. The second round begins, and when she pulls the trigger, the Game Master startles her for fun. Still, she survives and another player is eliminated. The Game Master asks her how many rounds she thinks she'll live through, and she responds that it's 29, since it's the number of times she survived when she practiced on her own. The third round begins and she immediately pulls the trigger. Once again she lives, but no one else gets eliminated. As the Game Master reloads the gun, he claims that this will be the shot that will kill her. However, the odds are again in the woman's favor, though the same is true for the other two players. 12 rounds later, all three players still live. The Game Master then tells the player that her daughter is probably better off penniless without a mother than to be rich with a crazy mother like her. However, the player argues that she needs to live to show her daughter what true love is like. Just then, the Game Master jokingly says that he'll find her daughter when the game is over. Soon, the Game Master gets notified that the organizers changed the rules. With this, he adds another bullet to the barrel and hands her the gun. Although worried, she pulls the trigger and survives. Afterward, she asks if someone got eliminated, so the Game Master says that one did, leaving it down to her and one more player. However, he hints that all she knows about the game is what he tells her, so he could be making it all up. This messes with the player's mind, so she demands the Game Master to prove that there really is one other player remaining. However, the Game Master refuses and tells her to pull the trigger. The player puts the gun away, so he yells at her to do it. The woman does so and survives again, but he warns that if she fails to comply again, she'll be shot dead, revealing that he also has a gun. As he adds another bullet to the barrel, the woman says that he forgot to tell if the other player survived. However, the Game Master only suggests that there is a possibility that the game is made up and she's the only one playing. Another round begins and the Game Master hands the gun with 3 bullets inside. As the woman places the weapon on her head, she realizes that the game might actually be rigged, so she aims the gun at the Game Master. The Game Master dares her, so she shoots. However, the barrel is empty, giving him time to flip the table and run. As he flees, the woman fires but uses up the bullets without killing him. Luckily, the Game Master dropped his gun on his way out, so she takes it. One of the Game Master's co-workers enters the room, but the player shoots him dead. Another man enters, so the woman plays dead until he's close enough for her to shoot. Suddenly, the Game Master lunges at her and chokes her. The woman struggles from his grasp until she notices the jar of her severed fingers. She reaches for it and smashes it on his head, freeing herself. As the woman stands, she discovers that the Game Master has a shard of glass on his throat, so he desperately asks her for help. He reminds her that he has a son to gain sympathy, but the player only responds that the child is better off without him, leaving the Game Master to die. The woman looks around the room and what she's done. She spots the Game Master's earpiece on the floor, so she picks it up and listens. To her surprise, she hears that she has won the game.
Subscribe to watch more videos like this. Turn on notifications. And leave a like, it really helps the channel out. Thank you for watching.